Have you ever shared something personal, only to regret it later? As we age, the value of privacy becomes clearer, almost like a light that grows brighter with time. There's a wisdom that comes with the years, not just in knowing what to say, but in understanding what to keep to yourself. After 70, the things we choose to share can carry unexpected consequences. What might seem like a harmless conversation, one moment can spiral into tension, misunderstanding, or even vulnerability we never intended to create. In this guide, we're going to explore 9 things you should never share with anyone after reaching this stage of life. This isn't about hiding who you are or living in secrecy. It's about protecting your peace, your privacy, and your personal security, which matter more now than ever. These aren't secrets born of shame. They're boundaries built from experience. Each one is designed to help you avoid emotional stress, safeguard your legacy, and preserve your dignity in this significant chapter of your life. Whether you've always been an open book or you lean toward being more reserved, you might find these 9 things worth holding a little closer to your chest. Because what you choose not to say can be just as powerful as what you do say. Choosing when to share and when to stay silent doesn't push people away, it shows wisdom. Stay with me until the end, because by the time we're done, you might look at your everyday conversations in a whole new way. You may even find yourself setting boundaries you didn't realize you needed. Let's dive in. One of the most important things to protect after 70 is the details of your financial situation. It's not just about keeping your money safe from strangers, but sometimes even from well-meaning friends or family. Talking openly about how much you've saved, what your pension looks like, or the full value of your home might feel harmless, especially in casual chats over coffee or at family gatherings. But once that information is out there, it's out there for good, and not everyone handles it with care. There's a subtle shift that happens when people know what you have. Expectations change. Boundaries blur. You might notice more frequent requests for help, or you could feel pressured into opportunities that don't truly benefit you. Even loved ones with good intentions might start assuming they can dip into resources you never promised, simply because they know you have them. Beyond that, sharing too much about your finances can open the door to manipulation. Scams targeting seniors are on the rise across America, and the more details someone has about your income, assets, or lifestyle, the easier it is for them to tailor their approach. Sometimes the threat doesn't come from outside your circle, it comes from within. A distant relative might feel entitled to a loan. A friend might push you toward a risky investment. It's not about living in secrecy, but about being discerning. Share financial details only with those who need to know. Your financial advisor, your spouse or trusted partner, maybe a legally designated family member or executor. But casual acquaintances, distant cousins, even overly curious neighbors, they don't need access to those parts of your life. Wise seniors often treat money conversations like medical records, not because they're ashamed, but because they understand the risks of oversharing. That boundary doesn't make you unfriendly. It makes you protected. It means your financial decisions stay yours, and your peace of mind remains intact. As you navigate life after 70, health becomes a daily reality. Doctor's appointments, new medications, aches and pains, they're part of the journey. It's natural to talk about these things, especially with friends or family, without giving it a second thought. But after 70, you should pause before diving into the details of your medical history, particularly in casual or non-intimate settings. It's not that your story doesn't matter, it's that how it's received can shape how others see and treat you. When you openly discuss every diagnosis, every surgery, every health concern, there's a risk that people start viewing you through that lens alone. You might notice them becoming overly cautious around you, offering pity instead of respect, or making assumptions about what you can and can't do. Once you're labeled as frail or declining, it's surprisingly hard to shake that perception. There's also an emotional toll. Constantly recounting your health journey can tie you to anxiety, fear, or even an identity rooted in illness. And when you share those details with people who aren't close, it can lead to uncomfortable comments, unsolicited advice, or judgment you never asked for. You might hear things like, "Are you sure you should be traveling?" Or "Maybe you shouldn't live alone anymore." All from people who barely know the full picture. Instead, choose to share selectively with trusted loved ones, healthcare professionals, or others walking a similar path. Sure, talk freely when it feels right. There's comfort in connection. But with others, a simple, "I'm managing some things, but I'm doing okay," can be enough. You're not hiding, you're safeguarding your autonomy. People who age gracefully often speak with intention. They know when to open up and when to hold back certain truths, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. Not every detail needs to be laid bare, and protecting your story is part of protecting your strength. If you're finding these insights valuable, please let me know you're here by commenting the number 2 below. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs and inspires you. Now let's move forward. Everyone has chapters of their life they wouldn't read aloud, but after 70 there's a deeper layer to what we choose to revisit, and more importantly, what we choose to reveal. Regrets have a strange way of lingering, especially when shared in the wrong context. While honesty and vulnerability have their place, constantly recounting past mistakes can do more harm than healing, especially when those stories are told to people who haven't earned your trust. When you talk about regrets, the choices you didn't make, the opportunities you missed, the people you hurt, you open a tender part of yourself. If the listener meets that moment with judgment, indifference, or even a dismissive remark, it can amplify your pain instead of offering relief. What was meant to be cathartic becomes another burden to carry. You might find that sharing these things with someone who doesn't handle them carefully changes how they see you. They might treat you differently, define you by a single story, or overstep with advice, opinions, or assumptions about who you are today. But you are not your past. You're not a list of wrong turns or missed chances. There's a profound wisdom in knowing which parts of your story are for sharing and which are for processing privately or with someone truly safe. Maybe a therapist, a spiritual advisor, or a lifelong friend who knows your heart. With others, it's enough to say, "There are things I've learned the hard way," and leave it at that. The older you get, the more you realize peace doesn't come from constant confession. It comes from perspective, from recognizing that your past shaped you, but it doesn't own you. That your mistakes might explain a few things, but they don't define the whole of who you are. Those who move through their 70s and beyond, with steady dignity, tend to tread lightly on their past, not because they're hiding it, but because they've made peace with it. They've learned that not every story is meant for every audience. There's something deeply personal, often emotional, about what you choose to leave behind. After 70, many people start thinking more seriously about their will, their assets, and how they want their legacy to be passed on. But here's the truth. Unless someone is legally involved in managing that process, it's almost always better to keep those details private. When you start sharing who gets what, how much, or when, you unintentionally open the door to conflict. Expectations form. Comparisons begin. People start wondering why one person was chosen over another, or why something was divided a certain way. Even in close-knit families, even with the best intentions, money and inheritance can stir up jealousy, entitlement, and misunderstandings faster than most topics. Sharing this kind of information before everything is finalized or without a legal context can backfire. You might change your mind later. You might revise your will. You might discover circumstances you hadn't anticipated. And when those details are already out there, changing them can feel like a betrayal, even if it's the right decision for you. That's why wise seniors tend to keep these matters within a small, trusted circle. They work with a lawyer. They choose an executor. They document their wishes clearly and legally. And they limit casual conversations that could complicate things later. It's not about secrecy. It's about stewardship. Sharing your plans with everyone might seem transparent, but it often creates unnecessary pressure. By prioritizing clarity and legal protection over open discussion, you're not just safeguarding your assets, you're preserving your peace of mind and your family's long-term relationships. If these insights are resonating with you, please comment the number 4 below to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love for you to join our community by subscribing and turning on notifications. Your support keeps us creating content that empowers you. Let's keep going. There's a unique strength that comes with age, a strength in knowing when to open your heart and when to protect it. After 70, emotional discernment becomes even more vital. You've seen enough of life to know that not everyone who listens deserves to hear your deepest truths. While talking about your feelings is healthy, sharing your emotional vulnerabilities with people who haven't earned your trust can leave you exposed in ways that hurt more than they help. Sometimes, The person seems kind on the surface. They nod, they ask questions, they appear to care. But then you hear your private concerns passed around as casual gossip. Or worse, your fears are used against you to manipulate, control, or paint an unfair or inaccurate picture of you. You might mention how lonely you've been feeling, or how you're afraid of losing your independence, or how certain family dynamics weigh on your heart. If those words fall into the wrong hands, they can be misunderstood or twisted into a narrative that makes you seem unstable, helpless, or overly emotional. People who age with grace learn to share their hearts carefully. They don't stop being open. They just get wiser about it. They know vulnerability isn't about telling everyone everything. It's about knowing who's safe. Those who are consistent, who hold your truths gently, who honor what you've shared. You can take your time to test the waters, observing how someone handles your smaller disclosures before entrusting them with deeper ones. If someone has shown they gossip, distort your words, or use your emotions to gain control, you don't owe them anything more. Your emotional health isn't their business. Your heart has been through enough at this stage. It deserves safety, kindness, and maturity in return. The less you share with those who haven't earned that place in your life, the more space you create for those who have. Every relationship has its highs and lows, even the strongest ones. After decades together, it's normal for disagreements, frustrations, or old wounds to surface now and then. But as you enter your 70s, one of the wisest choices you can make is to protect your relationship by not airing its struggles to those who aren't directly involved or can't help in a meaningful way. It might feel relieving to vent about your spouse or partner to a friend, neighbor, or even a family member. Maybe you share that you feel unheard or that a certain behavior keeps bothering you. But here's what often happens next. The listener forms an opinion. Once that opinion takes root, it changes how they see your partner. Even if things improve between you later, what was once a private disagreement becomes part of your public story. People start making assumptions. They might offer unsolicited advice, or worse, take sides without knowing the full context. That can add stress to the relationship you've worked so hard to build and maintain. There's another layer too. Sharing relationship frustrations too freely can sometimes trap you in them. When you vent without acting, the story hardens. You relive the conflict over and over instead of moving past it. But when you choose discretion, when you address those concerns directly with your partner or with a counselor or someone truly objective, you open the door to healing instead of judgment. Couples who endure over time tend to keep some things sacred, not secret, but sacred. They know that just because you're upset doesn't mean the world needs to know. They understand that protecting their partner's image, even in tough seasons, is a form of lasting love. So speak up when something's wrong, but speak wisely. Shield your connection from unnecessary noise. Trust that some conversations, the most important ones, belong only with the person they're meant for. If you're finding this valuable, please comment the number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed, consider joining our community by subscribing and turning on the bell. Your support fuels our mission to inform and inspire. Being a parent means caring deeply about your children, even when they're grown. You want the best for them. You want to protect them. Sometimes you see choices they make about parenting, relationships, finances, or lifestyle that don't align with your values. But after 70, one of the hardest but most important skills to master is knowing when to stay silent. Sharing your opinions about your adult children's lives, especially with others, can backfire quickly. What you mean as concern might be taken as criticism. What you see as wisdom might feel like judgment. When those opinions reach your children, even through innocent channels, it can create distance, resentment, or lasting strain in your relationship. You might feel the urge to talk it over with a friend or sibling. I just don't understand why Michael quit his job, or I wish Lisa would raise her kids differently. But once you say it, it lives in someone else's mind, and their view of your child might change forever. Worse, if it gets back to them, the trust you've built can take a serious hit. Those who maintain strong relationships with their grown children know how to hold their feelings in check. They remind themselves that unsolicited advice often feels like control. They wait for an invitation. They speak softly when that invitation comes. Above all, they keep private opinions where they belong. Private. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start trusting. Trusting that your children are living their own lives, learning their own lessons. Trusting that your quiet support, steady presence, and respectful distance often speak louder than any opinion could. Your wisdom still matters, but when it's offered at the right time, in the right way, it lands with love instead of resistance. In the long run, that respect builds the kind of connection that lasts. After 70, managing your digital and financial security becomes more critical than ever, but so does knowing who to trust with sensitive information. Sharing passwords, bank access, or critical personal data, even with family, should never be done lightly. It's not that you expect people to misuse it, but the risks grow when information is shared widely. You might think it's convenient to give your grandson your email password to help reset something. Or maybe you've told a neighbor where you keep your checkbook in case of an emergency. But once that information is out of your control, you can't always predict where it'll go or how it'll be used. Elder fraud is a real issue in America, and it doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it's a family member who feels entitled. Sometimes it's a friend in a tough spot. Other times it's just a mistake. Someone shares your information with another person thinking they're helping, and before you know it, your privacy is compromised. The wisest approach is to keep passwords and sensitive data securely stored and share them only through legally protected means. That might mean designating a trusted power of attorney, setting up access with your bank for a specific representative, or using a secure password manager where information can be retrieved safely if needed. Those who maintain their independence later in life often share one trait: they control their information, not through secrecy but through structure. They prepare documents and plan ahead. They avoid handing over the keys to their personal world unless it's absolutely necessary. There's nothing paranoid about protecting your digital life. It's part of safeguarding your dignity, your assets, and your autonomy. The fewer people who know how to access your sensitive records, the safer your future. If these ideas are hitting home, please comment the number 8 below to let me know you're still here. And if you're not subscribed, I'd love for you to join us by subscribing and turning on notifications. Your support keeps us going. Let's move to the final point. In your 70s and beyond, the idea of changing where or how you live becomes a deeply personal decision. Maybe you've thought about moving closer to family, downsizing to something more manageable, or transitioning to a retirement community. But here's where things get tricky. Sharing those plans too early, with too many people, can unleash a storm of pressure before you're ready. What starts as a passing thought, maybe I'll sell the house in a year or two, can quickly turn into unsolicited advice, assumptions, or even unwanted help. Family might push you to act faster. Friends might start treating you differently, as if you're already halfway gone. Worse, someone might start planning for you instead of with you. As soon as you share something as big as a life change, people naturally project their own fears, desires, or opinions onto it. Don't move too far. You'll regret selling. You should live with us. It might all come from a place of care, but it's not always helpful. If you're still in the decision-making phase, that noise can cloud your thinking and create unnecessary stress. That's why so many people who age with clarity choose to process these decisions privately first. They journal. They pray. They talk to 1 or 2 deeply trusted voices, not their entire circle. They gather information, weigh their options, and move at their own pace. When they're ready to act, they share. Announcing plans prematurely, especially big ones, can turn your personal process into a public debate. The more voices chime in, the messier it gets. By holding your plans close until you're confident and clear, you preserve the peace and agency this stage of life deserves. You don't owe anyone early access to your process. When the time is right, you'll let the right people in, and those who truly care about your well-being will respect your pace and privacy as you shape your next chapter. As we close, take a moment to reflect on what we've explored together. These 9 things might seem small on their own, but when you look closer, they all come back to one core idea: protecting your peace. After 70, your time, energy, and emotional safety become more precious than ever. Knowing what not to share is as powerful as knowing what to say. Which of these stood out to you? Have you ever shared something and later wished you hadn't? Or maybe you've learned the hard way that some things are better kept private. You're not alone. Many of us reach this stage of life and realize that boundaries aren't about building walls. They're about creating space where respect and clarity can thrive. Sharing is still beautiful, but now it's about sharing wisely with the right people at the right time. That discernment isn't cold or distant. It's one of the warmest, wisest gifts you can give yourself. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned and how you plan to use it in your life. Your insights matter to us, so don't hold back. Reading your comments fuels our motivation and encouragement. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs and inspires you. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.